tasaha, their minds being very disturbed, na, not, eva, indeed, agrananta, accepted, sambhrantaha, fearful, palayana paraha, intent upon fleeing, nipa, O king. Translation. Shri Shukdev Goswami said, O king, Vritrasura, the commander-in-chief of the demons, advised his lieutenants in the principles of religion. But the cowardly demoniac commanders, intent upon fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words. Text 2 and 3. O King Parikshit, the demigods, taking advantage of a favorable opportunity presented by time, attacked the army of the demons from the rear and began driving away the demoniac soldiers, scattering them here and there as if their army had no leader. Seeing the pitiable condition of his soldiers, Vritrasura, the best of the asuras, who was called Indra Shatru, the enemy of Indra, was very much aggrieved. Unable to tolerate such reverses, he stopped and forcefully rebuked the demigods, speaking the following in an angry mood. Text number 4. O demigods, these demoniac soldiers have taken birth uselessly. Indeed, they have come from the bodies of their mothers exactly like stool. What is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they are running in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who is afraid of losing his life. Such killing is never glorious, nor can it promote one to the heavenly planets. Purport. Vritrasura rebuked both the demigods and the demoniac soldiers because the demons were running in fear of their lives and the demigods were killing them from behind. The actions of both were abominable. When a fight takes place, the opposing parties must be prepared to fight like heroes. A hero never runs from the field of battle. He always fights face to face, determined to gain victory or lay down his life in the fight. That is heroic. Killing an enemy from behind is also inglorious. When an enemy turns his back and runs in fear of his life, he should not be killed. This is the etiquette of military science. Vritrasura insulted the demoniac soldiers by comparing them to the stools of their mother. Both stool and cowardly son come from the abdomen of the mother. And Vritrasura said that there is no difference between them. A similar comparison was given by Tulsi Dasa, who commented that a son and urine both come from the same channel. In other words, semen and urine both come from the genitals, but semen produces a child, whereas urine produces nothing. Therefore, if a child is neither a hero nor a devotee, he is not a son but urine. Similarly, Chanakya says, को अर्थ पुत्रेण जातेन यो न विद्वान् न धार्मिकः कानेन चक्षु किं वा चक्षु पीडेव केवलम्. What is the use of a son who is neither glorious nor devoted to the Lord? Such a son is like a blind eye which simply gives pain but cannot help see one. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshattarine Vancha Kalpa Tarurbhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to this discussion on dharma, which a demon is going to share, right? So, we are starting a new chapter today and very powerful chapter because this chapter is going to unveil the truth. By the end of this chapter, we will know who is a real demon and who is a real devata, right? So, the scene so far in the previous chapter, we saw the demigods with their renewed vigor and enthusiasm, having upon received the Vajrayudha, Indra, shining with the power of Lord Vishnu, entered into the battlefield. And as the demons started hurling so many weapons upon them, still nothing deterred the Devatas. And seeing their success, the demons got demoralized. And now we are at that point where the demons are trying to flee, and Vritrasura is trying to give them a motivational talk in the middle of the battlefield. Right? Suddenly he saw, "Arey, all my friends are leaving." Right? So actually, Vritrasura was powerful enough to handle all the devatas on his own. In the past, he did that. Right? But he is trying to engage in a dharma yuddha. Right? Because for a warrior, glorious is a warrior who gets an opportunity to fight. Not to fight, but to engage in a dharmic war. Right? We have to translate properly. Right? Glorious is a warrior because imagine it's like, as sadhus, you are always studying scriptures and, absorbing your mind in Shastra. But what if you never get an opportunity to preach? Right? So elsewhere, Chanakya Pandit, elsewhere, he says that how water, for it to be wealth, if not circulated, gets polluted. Water, if it is not moving, it gets polluted, right? And likewise, knowledge, if not shared, it gets polluted, right? So, because everything is an energy of the Lord and energy needs movement, right? So, if that opportunity, likewise for a Kshatriya, all the exercise that they did in the gym needs to be applied somewhere, right? And a Dharma Yuddha is an opportunity. That is why, glorious are those Kshatriyas who get an opportunity to engage in such a Dharma Yuddha. That is why it's not that, when we read in Mahabharata how all these warriors together, it's not that they were enthusiastic to fight, right? But Kshatriya is not one who's enthusiastic to fight, but Kshatriya is the one who's enthusiastic to fight for a cause. That's the important point here. And each side saw the cause in their own way, right? And so they were enthusiastic. That's why all the warriors from all over the planet, they finally saw, "Oh, here is one golden opportunity for us to prove our valor, to display our strength," right? And that is how a Kshatriya gets inspired. So Vritrasura and all the devatas, they got together for this fight. But Vritrasura saw, something very abominable in the battlefield happening. So we'll try to see why it is abominable and how Vritrasura is actually the only person following dharma in the battlefield there, right? So, uh, to relate with the situation of the devatas and the danavas, we need to analyze what motivates us in life. In any endeavor, what motivates us? Yes, what motivates you to do anything in life? If you, yeah, rasa, okay, right? There is some joy in doing something, right? Okay, yes, what motivates you to do? Sorry, happiness. Okay, okay, let's come to that. Yes, any other answers? What motivates you to do something in life? Sense of duty motivates you, okay, to gain something, right? Let's say you go out for book distribution. Not a single person is taking book, right? You spend 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, you spend 9 hours, right? Not a single book gone. Will you stay for another 2 hours? Right? You will come back, right? Let's say you said happiness, right? What if your job makes you feel miserable every day? Will you continue that job? There's no point in working, right? If there's no happiness, right? So most of us, we are motivated by a sense of gain, some accomplishment, some gain, right? And so this is exactly what happened to Devatas in the previous chapter and the Danavas in this chapter. In the previous chapter, they lost. Then they thought, okay, they became demotivated. So then Lord Vishnu had to encourage them. Don't worry, I'm giving you this Vajrayuda. Right? Then in this chapter, we saw how the Daityas, the Danavas, as they were losing, until then they were very enthusiastic. They captured the heaven. They are enjoying the heavenly planet, right? But once they saw that they are losing the war, they started escaping. Now, from a practical point of view, don't you think that the demons were right? Because, I mean, they are losing their life. Life is the most honorable, most important thing. If there is no life, then why live? Right? So, that is the most important, most precious asset, commodity that we have. So, in a sense, they were being very practical and right. If we are not winning the war, then just run away from the war, right? So is that legit? That is a question that we'll discuss, which Vitrasura is very strongly contesting. The second thing is, from the Devata's point of view, why engage in war? What is the point of war? What is the point of war? To restore peace. It may sound little counterintuitive, but actually the point why wars are fought is to restore peace, right? So if you see from that point of view, when the demons were running away from the battlefield, peace is restored, right? Then there's no point of killing. Yet the Devatas, they started killing the demons from their back. And this is another point which Vitrasura raises, saying, hey, this is adharmic war. You are supposed to be Devatas. You are supposed to be protectors of Dharma. And what are you doing here? Right? So this is another contention. So this is where we really need to broaden our understanding of what is Dharma. Many times for us, Dharma is very utilitarian. If something serves some purpose, if it has some utility behind it, then it is the right way of doing and living and being, for right? That's called the utilitarian philosophy, right? Why waste money on something which is not giving you any return, right? Why give charity? Do you gain something from charity? Anything tangible do you gain? ATG certificate, yeah, that's the only gain. That at least because of that ATG, people give charity today. If that ATG is not there, will people be charitable? Right? For the name on the marble, right? So basically, there is some return. That's why, otherwise, there is no gain in charity. Also, the fee. The pride is there. Basically, then that pride feeling has to be told to at least 100 people, bring 10 news channels, and give that 1 rupee donation. Ishwar Bhav is there, right? Yeah, some people just do it for the sake of feeling good about themselves, right? So if you see everything, today we are completely driven by a principle of utility. So here, Vitrasur is saying, look, your motivation for work should not be utility, but something beyond that. Right? What is that beyond? We will arrive at the end of this chapter, right? Or maybe today's discussion also. So this is the concept of how Here there is a sacred yagya. A dharma yuddha is like a yagya being performed. A yagya where both sides are willing to, what is the swaha? What is the oblation into that fire? Your own life. And that is why when an oblation is put into fire, what are we doing? Are we just burning some grains and ghee and wasting them? What are we creating? Yes, our yagya brahmanas are sitting there behind. Right? The purpose of yagya, right? So by putting in one grain into the fire, you are creating prosperity for the entire universe. Not just one person, two, for the entire universe is going to get benefited from that one grain put into the oblation. The entire universe is being maintained by the principle of yagya. Right? In the Bhagavad Gita also, when Lord Krishna, the third chapter, he gives a whole cycle of sacrifice. Right? What is cycle of sacrifice? Annat bhavanti bhuta. Where do food grains come from? From rains. Where rains come from? Evaporation. They come from yagya. And how do we indulge in yagya? By doing our prescribed duties. Where are prescribed duties mentioned? In the Vedas. Who gave the Vedas? Krishna. Right? So how is this a cycle? Is a straight line? Na? Sorry? No, a cycle means every point should be connected to every point. You're starting from food and ending with Krishna. So for you to finish the loop, yeah, very good, right? But if you see the entire cycle here, do we have the capacity to produce food grains on our own? No. Do we have the capacity to invoke rains? Right? Do we have the power to create a yagya? What do you think? Then what is Prabhuji doing every day? We don't even have power to create a yagya. We only follow the rules of yagya. Right? We use a technology called as yagya. We didn't invent the science of yagya. Right? Can we create us? No. Is a supreme lord in our control? No. So if you see all the elements of the cycle of sacrifice, the only way we can contribute to the cycle of sacrifice is through our prescribed duties. Our contribution to the universe is our sense of duty. That's it. There is no other way, because the way Krishna created this universe, everybody plays their role in ensuring that the balance in this cosmos is maintained. The way we, as humans, we try to maintain the balance of this cosmos is by engaging in our prescribed duties. That is why, if you see majority of the Vedas, the concept of dharma is so hammered, right? So more than karma and prema, dharma is hammered a lot, because they are called dharmic tradition. They are called dharmic granth. So dharma is there throughout the Vedas. Why dharma has been so much emphasized? Because our connection to this universe, our contribution to this universe, ensuring the balance is dharma. Right? We cannot contribute in any other way. In every other way, we are only receiving. So if food, rains, knowledge, blessings, mercy is our right, the responsibility we have is dharma. Because you cannot have rights without responsibilities. You cannot isolate these two things. The moment you stake a claim for a particular right, you will stake a claim that I have right for prasadam. After class, I need to get brunch, right? But if you have a right for prasad, somebody else has a responsibility to cook that prasad, right? So which means this is the order of this universe. Once rights become somebody else's responsibility and vice versa. This is how we are maintaining the fine balance in this universe. And the way we contribute to this balance is by engaging in our prescribed duties. And that is why this dharma of prescribed duties is so important, Vritrasura is hammering this. You are all Kshatriyas. How are you contributing? By following the dharma of the Kshatriya code of conduct. Right? So he's telling these warriors that, hey, it's not about what is the point of work? Everybody thinks the goal of work is success. Most of us are gauged by how much success comes out of any endeavor. But the goal of any work is, loudly please. Please, Krishna. Okay, yes, that's a little transcendental goal, little more. But how that pleasing Krishna happens? Or how do you, not how pleasing Krishna happens, but how that pleasing of Krishna manifests in your life? No, that is the effort part. How does a result manifest in your life? How do you know that you have worked properly? What is the goal of work? Yes, Mati, getting more services. Okay, little more. Please the immediate superiors. Okay, Prabhuji is near the bullseye. Almost near the bullseye, but one more, little. Yatma suprasidati. When did the suprasidati happen? What happens internally? Purification. That's the word I was looking for. Right? The goal of work is purification of consciousness. That's it. Right? Because if the principle of dharma is overemphasized, sometimes it can also lead to burnout. Like when Mataji said, goal of service is to get more service. It's the ideal situation. But in between, if the purification is not happening, that will lead to service burnout. Right? So the point is that we work for purification. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says that better to engage your duties imperfectly than somebody else's duty perfectly, the point Krishna is emphasizing there is that your swadharma should lead to purification of your heart. Right? Because somebody else's swadharma will not purify you. Our body and mind are tuned in a certain way that one particular kind of work is what that purifies us. Right? That is our dharma, our swadharma, our personal dharma. Right? So then when you engage in your swadharma, the first thing you'll experience is purification of your heart, and everything else that you said is also right. These are all the effects. Right? Of course, the first thing that happens is Krishna is pleased. That comes as purification, that you experience as purity of your heart, and that leads to gaining more, pleasing the superiors, pleasing everybody else. The whole cycle follows. But the first thing is you work to experience purity of the heart, and this is going to be a very important internal barometer for us, because many times we are also told engage in seva, service, your dharma, whatever, right? Different levels. But how do I know that I am engaging in work properly? Right? And this is where sometimes we may also get stuck. Sometimes you may get over obsessed with the concept of dharma, that yes, results are not important, Prabhu. Right? Somebody sends you for donation collection or something, and you'll say, Prabhu, results are not important. The goal of work is purification of heart, and I'm thoroughly getting purified. Right? So don't ask me to sell more books or collect more funds or build more whatever. So there's a very thin line sometimes that we need to discriminate between when should I continue to persist and when should I change plans. Right? What do you think is that defining factor? Like, did you get the scenario here? For years you've been doing the same thing. Right? Let's say you are going to some remote center somewhere and preaching, and no results are coming. For 10 years, you have spent the institution's resources, your own human energy more than anything, right? And no results are coming. When will you say, now it's time to shut down operations? Or let me put in more effort, right? So how do I know? Because in motivational talks we hear now, like the bamboo tree example, keep watering the bamboo tree for 10 years. Suddenly one day the bamboo will grow. In 1 year it will grow. These are all good for motivational talks. But in real life scenario, how do I know? Is it bamboo tree there or am I just putting water in a desert? Right? How will we know? What do you think is the marker, internal marker? Result though, then you should stop in the first year itself. No, results are not coming, then I mean, take the life of Srila Prabhupada, right? We see the success of his last 10 years, but apparently there was no success in the first 40 years, right? So, how do we know how much of it? Because we all discuss the successful case studies only, right? In fact, this is a very, unfortunately, this is a very wrong narrative that sometimes we present. We try to compare Prabhupada with his God brothers and glorify Prabhupada, saying that, look, Prabhupada got so much success, his God brothers did not get success. Therefore, Prabhupada is a pure devotee, they may not be. Right? It's a very wrong narrative. Right? Because we use them, our that worldly thinking we superimpose upon spiritual personalities, and we wrongly judge people because we say, and we also quote Sanskritam shlokas, phalena parichayate. Right? The result is a proof of the the efficacy of some effort, right? So how do we know that, is it an over endeavoring going on, or when do I know I'm over endeavoring, or when do I know when I'm under endeavoring? Very nice. Am I growing inside or not? Very nice. Yes. So two simple markers which I may suggest, if actually three simple markers. The first one, Prabhuji very nicely pointed out, that may take little time. That's a long-term thing. But a very two important short-term markers I can tell you, which will say, am I over-endeavoring or under-endeavoring? First, am I able to sleep peacefully in the night or not? You may be laughing, but trust me, this is a very important marker. Second, this is even more powerful. Am I able to chant attentively the next morning or not? Right? So if these two things are happening properly in your life, then you are following dharma. Very simple, na? Right? Now it makes sense. And if you carefully see, whenever you have over endeavored in your life, these two things get ruined: sleep and japa. Right? And no, Prabhu. Trust me, they don't. Because Paramatma in the heart is screaming so loudly, he will not allow you to sleep. Or during japa, because under endeavor is tamogun, over endeavor is rajogun. Both disturb the quality of our japa. Right? The sattva samshuddhi, the purification of heart that happens through sattva, is that golden mean in between rajas and tamas. Right? When you're neither over endeavoring or under endeavoring. So this is a very important marker. Therefore, the success of our effort is not to be gauged on, or should I say, the end result of our endeavor is not to be judged based on external success alone. It's about the purification of heart, and am I growing or not in the long run, right? Yes, exactly. Because ultimately the point of this material world is to purify your consciousness. And work is just one of the means to do that, right? So that is why Vritrasur here, understanding this big cosmic dharma, this is the law that Krishna created this universe for, right? So when he saw that these, both the fleeing demons and the attacking devatas, both are violating this principle, the cosmic order of Krishna, as a pure devotee, his heart started paining. So these abuses that Vritrasur is hurling towards both Devatas and the Danavas is not some Rajasic Kshatriya, quote unquote Kshatriya spirit, but rather it's an outpour of compassion from his heart. You rascals, you are missing a golden opportunity here. Stay here and fight. And you guys fight properly. Don't attack their backs. Why? Because this fight will please Krishna in a sense that it will purify your heart. You will be acting according to the plan of the Lord. And that is the whole goal of our life, to ensure that the plan of the Lord gets executed. So even in a battlefield where there are broken bones and arms and blood and broken heads rolling around everywhere, Vritarasura was able to see Krishna's beautiful order. He was able to see the compassion that Krishna gave in the form of dharma. And that is why a pure devotee like Vritarasura, his heart started paining, that why these people are not following these principles of dharma. And that mood of Vritarasura is going to come out. Now it is easy to say, it's easy to preach dharma when you are on the winning side. Right? When success is with you, easy to be very dharmic and give bhashan. But when you know that you are going to fail, or when you are going to lose your life, you still preach dharma. That is exactly what Vritrasura is going to do. At some point, Indra loses his motivation. Seeing Vritrasura's aggression, Indra loses his motivation. So then Vritrasura had to give motivational talk even to Indra, saying, Indra, what is in your hand? Don't you have faith in Lord Narayan's mercy, in Krishna's mercy? You are empowered by Narayan. Please release this weapon. He had to motivate him. Right? So he had to invoke dharma even at the expense of his own life. Right? Because for Vritrasur, death is not what it seems to be. For him, death is a secret veil behind which the two lovers meet. Who are the two lovers? Atma and Bhagavan. Right? So death is, for Vritrasur, death is just a, I'm quoting one famous, they're not my poetic lines. I'm quoting one famous poet here. He says that this death is like a lover's retreat, he says in one poem, right? Because under the grave, it may seem like you have gone under the grave, but actually you have risen way higher, right? This is the mood of Vritrasur. And this, this loving mood comes out in the last 4 verses of this chapter, which is the highlight of entire Bhagavatam, if I may say. Right? Bhagavatam is famous for those 4 verses of Vritrasura that are going to come in the end. Right? So that is the mood that Vritrasura is presented. And therefore, we should not see that this Vritrasura's abusive words, language is not a flaw in his character, but rather it is his spontaneous outpour of love for Krishna. This is what our acharyas wanted to see in Vritrasura. This is the reason why Shukdev Goswami presented this pastime, to show that how a pure devotee is not, you cannot even judge a pure devotee just by their externals, not even by their actions and words. Anybody who just sees this part of Vritrasura. So yesterday, I was showing that picture. Do we have this picture in this book? So I was showing this picture of Vritrasura to my wife, and immediately she just said, "Ooh, what is this guy?" Right? So, right, but he's a pure devotee. If somebody comes with, all the kavacha kundalas and all the golden armlets and shining effulgence, if somebody sits like that, oh, he's a pure devotee. But when you see somebody like that, externally also, you may never get attracted to a person like Vritrasura. Right? So this whole story of Vritrasura is going to shatter our conception of who is divine and who is demoniac. Right? And so this is the concept of dharma. So how do we personally apply this principle in our life? How can we learn to be dharmic? Right? Because ultimately our connection to this universe, as I said, is the principle of yajna. So we should have this mood of yajna in every endeavor of your life. Right? Because not all of us are fortunate like Pitambar Prabhu and Sri Gaurcharan Prabhu, Jaru Thakur Prabhu, Shivan Sham Prabhu, who are engaging in the fire yajna, right? But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna presents another kind of yajna. A yajna which requires no fire and no grains. But purification is guaranteed. Right? This yajna is done through the vision of knowledge, jnana yajna. Right? One is dravya yajna, where you put ingredients into fire. But if you engage in this jnana yajna, what is this jnana yajna? It's a whole change in your worldview. What is, because in every yajna requires three things: fire, the oblation, and the result which comes. So in this jnana yajna, what is this fire? A connection to a higher purpose. We need to identify a higher purpose in our life. And in that higher purpose, what is the oblations? Swaha, what do you put in? Our attachments, our shortcomings, our limitations. So in the fire of higher purpose, when you put in the oblations of your attachments, you will experience purification of consciousness. This is guaranteed. And this yajna is so beautiful, so powerful, so robust. You don't need a yajna to do that. You can do it even in the shower. Every day in the morning, especially now, this is a nice season, but in the winter mornings, what do you experience? The snooze is activated in winter morning, right? So in that mood, in that moment, you are thinking, oh, I have to go into that cold shower and take a bath with that cold water, or even warm water sometimes is it lost here. So at that point, you can invoke this yajna. So in that yajna, what is a fire? In the fire of water, if I put in the oblations of my morning laziness, I will experience sattva, purification of consciousness, right? So now you see, you can broaden the scope of yajna. Yajna doesn't require a fire. There is a fire all around us. Any higher purpose that you connect to is going to be a yajna, right? So sometimes, for example, in the yajna of commitment to hearing Bhagavatam, you are offering, you could be doing so many other things. You could be chilling out somewhere, you could be doing your own thing, right? But whatever distractions that you have offered it into this fire of hearing Bhagavatam. You will experience purification of consciousness. So right now, sitting here, we are doing a yajna, Shravana yajna. So if you understand this concept of Jnana yajna, every endeavor in our life can be potentially seen as an act of dharma, a dharmic yajna. This is the way we can elevate our consciousness, right? And therefore, for such an advanced soul, there is no limitation. They will always feel connected to the Lord, because they always see a higher purpose in any endeavor that they make in their life, like that. So just as a closing point, so when I was preparing for this purport, so just to show yajna concept in action, how Prabhupada put it in action. So when I was reading this purport, I saw this Chanakya Pandit's quote, right? And then I was thinking, Prabhupada extensively quotes Chanakya. Did any of our predecessor acharyas ever quote Chanakya? So I did a quick search, right, through Vishnacharya Thakur's entire Bhagavatam commentary. Guess how many times Vishnacharya Thakur quotes the word Chanakya in his entire commentary? Take a wild guess. 0? Well, one time he quotes. Not Chanakya Niti. In the 11th canto, 12th canto, first chapter, Chanakya's appearance is predicted in Bhagavatam. So there, one time the word Chanakya comes. Otherwise, not a single time does Vishnacharya Thakur ever quote Chanakya Niti. And Chanakya was born around 3rd century BCE. So if you see, Vishnacharya Thakur, at least like 15 centuries gap was there. So he already knew, Chanakya was already a famous person by that time. So all this Chanakya Niti was there to access for Vishnacharya Thakur, but he never quotes even once. And Prabhupada, guess how many times Prabhupada quotes Chanakya? There are 24 Chanakya Nitis that you will see in Prabhupada quote book. And those 24 Nitis, Prabhupada quotes 54 times in Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. One time in Gita, in that very infamous statement in the first chapter. Not infamous, sorry, a very confusing statement, right? Uh, 2 times in Chaitanya Charitamrita and 51 times in Bhagavatam, the Amala Purana. So somebody reading that may think, oh, Prabhupada is quoting Chanakya. So Chanakya is legit? Then why none of our previous acharyas, for example, Vishnu Thakur extensively quotes Sridhar Swami, right? Even though he's from a quote-unquote Mayavadi tradition, but he's a pure devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself quotes him, right? So how come Prabhupada is quoting someone which none of our predecessor acharyas quote? Do you think it's legit? If somebody asks you this question, in fact, they will say, Prabhuji, Prabhupada is extensively quoting Chanakya. Maybe we should have, we should have a special series on Chanakya Niti. What will you say? Like we are studying Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavatam, and we should also read Chanakya Niti. What will you reply to such a person? Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good answer. But then you're kind of passing the buck to Prabhupada. Well, so I mean, tomorrow if somebody quotes from some other author, that like I just quoted from Rumi here in between, that English statement is from a Persian poet named Rumi, right? So does it mean Prabhupada never quoted Rumi? Prabhupada never recommended reading Rumi. So does it mean it's illegit? So what gives authenticity? So Prabhupada is not making Chanakya legit. Anything that Chanakya says which is in line with Shastras is legit. The other statements which he quotes, which are not in line with Shastra, are illegit. Right? So the point is, again, back to this principle of dharma, how Prabhupada expertly uses principle of dharma. Anything that is in line with the dharma of the Lord, those words we will quote. But anything which is not, even if the Supreme Lord is not speaking in line with dharma, I reject that Supreme Lord. Example, Buddha. Right? During the 70s, Buddhism was very popular in the Western society. So some devotees were said, should we read Buddha and all that? So we respect Buddha as an avatar, but we don't accept his teachings. Why? Because he is not in line with Vedas. So if the Supreme Lord himself is not in line with the Vedic Dharma, we reject the teachings of the Supreme Lord. We'll respect him. Respect doesn't mean follow. We respect him, but we will not follow him. This is the principle that we need to understand. So that's why. So we need to broaden our understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So Prabhupada, by quoting Chanakya here, he's perfectly applying this principle of dharma. Because he is in line with that principle, therefore we will quote him. Otherwise, it's like that. All right, so these are a few thoughts which I wanted to share. Any quick questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. We see that in this pastime, though the internal heart, just like you said, the loving heart of Dhritarashtra will be revealed in last 4 verses. But initially, so much of dharma is speaking, and it's Shukdev Goswami also covering all the dialogue. We see in first canto when Bhishma Deva is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. There he kind of summarizes whole dharma, whatever Bhishma spoke, in 2 lines and says that was covered.
Mm-hmm.
And then he jumps to Bhishma's internal prayers to Krishna. So is there any difference between how Vritrasura is applying dharma or speaking dharma and the way Bhishma Pitama is going to speak to Yudhishthir? Why Shukdev Goswami is kind of highlighting here the dharma principles and not? Because the talk of Bhishma is also very famous regarding dharma when he's talked to Yudhishthir Maharaj relative to Vritrasura's talk to demons and even demigods. Is there any some thin difference between the two?
No, actually there's no difference. If you think about it, the goal of all karma is to align ourselves with dharma. And the goal of all dharma is to invoke prema. Right? So the first part, karma to dharma transition, Gita covers already. The transition from dharma to prema is what Bhagavatam is going to cover. So if you see carefully, the line of thought, whether it be Bhishma Dev or you know, even Kapila Dev or Prithu Maharaj or Lord Shiva teaching to Prachetas or our Vritrasur himself, right? Or even Ajamil in the previous, the Yamuduta, all the conversations centered around Dharma, Dharmaraj himself, as he says. Finally, they are all going to highlight this beautiful side of ultimately connection to that higher truth, to absolute truth is the highest Dharma. Dharmam su sakshat bhagavad pranitam is a principle that you will see. And in a sense, just for a moment, if you put all these pastimes, the characters, the divinity of all these personalities aside, let's appreciate for a moment the author of Bhagavatam. Not even the speaker, the author. Vyasa has compiled so many other literature, and he saw that, look, people can be misled with all this. I want to, because the pastime of Vritrasur is famous is presented in other scriptures also. In my previous class, I saw the Padma Puran version of Vritrasur pastime we discussed, right? But yesterday, as Mohanlas was also mentioning, the label for this Bhagavatam is this particular rendering of Vritrasur pastime. Because the different Puranas, they have the poetic license to sometimes uh, present a pastime in a different light, highlighting only one aspect. Because mind you, Vritrasur was in the body of a demon and he was the best demon possible. Because many times we think, oh, demon or devotee, everybody should be like Prahlad Maharaj. It's not like that. Vritrasur was the best demon possible because Lord wanted him to be the best demon. Right? So if he has to be the best demon, he also did many demoniac things, quote unquote demoniac things. Those things are highlighted in the other Puranas. But in Bhagavatam, the dharmic side of Vritrasur is highlighted. In all the pastimes, if you see, Dhruv Charitra is presented in other scriptures also. But the dharmic side, the prema side of Dhruva is what is highlighted in Bhagavatam. So all these pastimes, they are highlighted in a different way in other scriptures. What makes Vyasa's presentation of Bhagavatam so amazing? He brings out this, what it takes to make the transition from dharma to prema. That pastime, that aspect of the pastime alone he highlights. That's why he doesn't go into unnecessary detail. Like, for example, you mentioned about Bhishma. If you read that same Bhishma's Upadesh in Mahabharata, it runs into chapters and chapters. And one of the very powerful sections, because there the focus is how do I transit from karma to dharma. Bhagavatam's highlight is that is already over. Dharma to prema, how do I go? Right? So therefore, we need to really appreciate Vyasdev for presenting Bhagavatam, because anybody else reading the same pastimes from any other source will be thoroughly misled. Right? So Vyasa makes sure that no matter how dumb anybody will be, they will not get misled. He has given the most refined, important part of a pastime so that, at the same time, he also keeps it very exciting. He doesn't keep it very boring. Imagine Vritrasur pastime with only the last 4 prayers. None of the drama, the dramatic action of the first 3 chapters before that. Right? So Vyasa is so expert. He knows how to captivate the mind of the audience and present the bitter pill of wake up from dharma to prema, right? So that's why so many pasam, not just this, later on Narada Supadesha to Yudhishthir Maharaj, every chapter has some dharmic instructions, but from the Swadharma, eventually the transition has to be made to the Bhagavad Dharma, and that is what is highlighted throughout Bhagavatam. It's a consistent theme every pastime. This is my understanding. Maybe others may highlight more. Yes, Prabhuji wants to add something. Yeah.
What you just mentioned is very eloquently captured in the 3rd canto shloka. Nehayat karma dharmaya naviragaya kalpate na tirtha pada sevayai jivannapi mrutopi saha. Nehayat karma dharmaya. If our karma doesn't lead to dharma, na viragaya kalpate. If dharma doesn't lead to viraga,
Viraga.
and na tirtha pada sevaya. If viraga, detachment, doesn't lead to tirtha pada seva, service to the lotus feet of the Lord, then although we are living, we are dead. So karma should lead to dharma, dharma should lead to viraga, detachment, detachment should lead to Krishna prema.
Jai. One last question. Prabhu wants to add something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one doubt, Prabhuji. Previously, in the one class in Uttarasurya past time, only you told that there are the different stories of this Uttarasurya in Purana and here. So right now, also you told that Bhishma, the so many eloquent prayers he done in Mahabharata, only the needful prayers that leads to dharma to prema in the Bhagavatam, that was discussed in the Bhishma prayers. So is that the prayers given by devotees like Bhishma, those which are necessary only to convert into the prema that are explained in the Bhagavatam, are just to invoke the prema for the Lord, they modified or kind of the like why I'm asking this modification is to lead to the prema, or they did something extra, or whatever existing thing only they are manipulating towards the prema in the scriptures.
Let me put your very polite question in a very aggressive way. Did Vyasa change something while writing Bhagavatam? No, it's not like that, Prabhu. See, in a mango fruit, the entire tree is there. But the essence of the tree is the fruit. But it is not that there is no tree in the fruit, because once you eat that mango in the seed, there's a potential to bring out the entire fruit. So we need to understand that when you are refining something, it is not that the bigger thing is lost, but rather it is also included within that. Because Bhagavatam, through its instructions and prayers, is elevating us to a state of consciousness. In that state, you'll automatically realize it is not that when you progress from karma to jnana, you give up karma. It is not that when you progress from jnana to dhyana, you give up jnana and karma. It is not that when you progress from dhyan to bhakti, you give up the other things. It is there. In the Bhakti Sutras also, Narada, he says that the Brajvasis, it is not that they do not know about Krishna's greatness. They know about Krishna's greatness. But in the foreground of the sweetness, the greatness just fades away. That's why sometimes, even in Gopi Geet, sometimes you will hear the gopis glorifying Krishna and his greatness also. But it is not that that is their sthai bhav. That's not their default mood. For them, Krishna is always their beloved lover. So we need to understand that when prema is brought out, it is not that dharma and karma are negated. Right? So look at it this way, that when you realize as prema, it automatically comes. It's like saying if somebody has a PhD degree, they already know how to count 1, 2, 3, which they learn in kindergarten. Right? So that is the way we need to understand. It is not that something is left out and only that is given. But rather, sometimes people are not in that state of awareness to understand everything, to understand a very refined concept, right? Therefore, they have to speak a lot. One famous author once said that after writing this very, very big book, one reporter asked him, "Wow, you compiled this magnum opus." He said, "I wrote a big book because I could not write a small one." It takes more talent to bring out the refined essence and present it in a sutra way, right? Technically, whatever we are discussing in the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam are also there in the in the 1200, 900 or 1200 verses of Vedanta Sutra. But sometimes people need a lot of elaboration. So it is not that Vyasa left out anything, but rather he is highlighting something. And by understanding that, you'll also understand everything else that is there. I don't know if I'm making sense to you. Okay. Okay, we'll end here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Antakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.